I'm Jason Bradbury, and you're watching the Masters of Innovation podcast. My agent rang me up. There's a new show on Channel 5. They're putting together a show. It's called the Gadget Show. It's about technology. I thought of you, Jason. They want someone who's a bit colourful, bit of a character, but also knows the tech. And that was it. I said, well, we could build a hoverboard. And he was like, you could do what? Well, yeah. And I had this idea because I was so obsessed with Back to the Future that I said we could get a piece of wood and we could put a leaf blower engine on it and a bit of pond lining. Now that's a thing. But we kind of invented AI in the 80s, meaning sort of the way that fiction precedes so much of real innovation, right? And there's a proper theme there. What I'm ready for now, I'm ready for Vision Pro level visuals, right? But with Quest 3 ease of use and gaming catalog. That's what I want. And that's what I hope Valve are going to drop.
Okay, cool. Well, why don't we kick off there? My name's Alex, and we've got a very special episode of Masters of Innovation. We've got one of the masters of innovation, certainly when it comes to the tech space on TV. You may have heard of a little TV show called The Gadget Show. Well, there's no one's face that's more synonymous than that than, of course, Jason Bradbury. So, Jason, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And a lovely introduction. Oh, yeah. I don't think I'm a master of innovation so much as a master of basking in the reflected glory of other people's innovation, I would say.
Well, there you go.
As a tech reviewer, that's what we get to do, isn't it? We get to experience these amazing things, and then we get a little bit of the shine off them, I think. That's maybe the best description.
Absolutely, right. Basking in other people's innovation.
That's the best way.
Totally, man. And obviously, I know you very well, although we've only met today, but in terms of your kind of profile and the Gadget Show and stuff like that, but for those that don't know Jason, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, it's an open question, man. Take it however you want to take it.
Oh, that's really lovely. What a lovely thing it is to be able to talk about yourself for 5 minutes. Okay, I'll give you the sort of honest answer to that. So I grew up in the 80s, right? So I was born in 1969. Can you believe that? 1969. And so I was really sort of conscious properly when I was about 11 in 1980, like you kind of start understanding the world around you with a little bit of a philosophical kind of angle. And of course, it was an amazing period of innovation. You would have loved it. If you think now is crazy, and by God, it's crazy, we've got to get onto AI at some point.
We're 100% going to do that.
But we kind of invented AI in the 80s, meaning sort of the way that fiction precedes so much of real innovation, right? And there's a proper theme there to mine. The 80s was a great playground for visualizing how we wanted the future to be, and it was a time of great sort of future gazing. So it's no coincidence that Back to the Future and Terminator, these time-centric works of art, were so central to pop culture, so popular. Synthesizers, breakdancing, graffiti. It was an incredible period where so many things that we now sort of take for granted were in personal computers and video games. I mean, my God.
Yeah, just a little bit there, as well, right?
And so I was taking in all that. But my dad worked as a plastics expert for a series of companies, and so he would get consulted to help with the plastics on all kinds of innovations, so prototypes and so on. I mean, he wasn't so much. He was a plastics expert. He wasn't a designer. He wasn't a scientist. He really was a salesman. But he was very aware of materials, a bit like Sir Clive Sinclair. You might have heard of the ZX Spectrum, the Sinclair C5, sure, which we can mention in a minute. I'm actually looking at one up to the right of the camera.
Well, I was thinking you're using it as part of your setup, which is a little bit, for those that don't know what a Sinclair C5 is.
Yeah,
maybe you could tell the audience.
Well,
if you're not really, of this generation,
it's certainly one of the world's first electric personal transportation devices. So it's a three-wheeled recumbent bicycle with a sort of covering around it straight out of a science fiction movie. It looks like something from Star Wars, and it's got a Hoover engine in it. It has.
Okay.
And it's got a couple of batteries, and you twist a grip and you're off. And you don't want to be going man around about because you're probably going to crash.
Well, I hope it's not road legal, right? Or is it road legal?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely road legal, or was until I upgraded it. But yeah. And so it was a period of great innovation. And I was caught between my dad geeking out over materials and bringing home prototypes for the first generation of personal computers and things like that, and kind of being a bit of a class clown. So I like to make people laugh. And I was very much into breakdancing and body popping and street dance, which was very, very new then. I went to like a dance school like twice a week. And I ended up doing a drama or film, TV and theatre degree. So I wasn't just playing games. I was really into it. All right. But I was also really geeky, and I was really into the stuff that my dad brought home. The first digital watch, the first calculators, the first, the ZX80 in 1980, my first computer with a white clean keyboard. And you had to solder the parts together to get it going. Wow. You had to solder the parts together to get the machine working. And then all through that, video games, blah, 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 ended up at university. Really loved the film part of my degree and the television stuff. And then ended up, and it seems so obvious now, but bummed around in TV. And there is an end to this, Alex. I reckon 30 seconds and we're done. Bummed around in TV, doing shows that no one really remembers me for. And then there was my agent rang me up. Oh, there's a new show on Channel 5. They're putting together a show. It's called The Gadget Show. It's about technology. I thought of you, Jace. They want someone who's a bit colourful, bit of a character, but also knows the tech. And that was it. And I went to the audition. And one of the things that I did was, I remember I was in the audition and the series producer was at the back of the room, wasn't really paying attention. I was being auditioned by one of the junior people. Yeah, they'd probably seen several people that day. And I said, do you know what you should do? You should make stuff. And I remember the series producer or exec producer just was like doing that. I went, what do you mean? Like took attention, you know what I mean? Like suddenly noticed me. And I said, well, there's a real maker scene. Wired magazine had just started doing builds in the back of it. And there were other magazines that were starting. We still read magazines back in the day when we started the Gadget Show. I think it was 2005. I can't remember exactly when it was. And I said, well, we could build a hoverboard. And he was like, you could do what? Well, yeah. And I had this idea because I was so obsessed with Back to the Future that I said we could get a piece of wood and we could put some, put a leaf blower engine on it and a bit of pond lining. Now that's a thing. Back then, there was no YouTube in 2005. You know that, right? There was no Wi-Fi, bro. Like Wi-Fi was just beginning, but not in a every house, every cafe has it sort of sense. No Bluetooth.
I was going to say, I think you might think I'm a little bit younger than that.
Is it a beard oil?
So I do use a beard oil, but I haven't today because it makes your beard very shiny. So with the lighting, your beard would be actually like you look like an apple. That's how shiny you are, and I mean that as a compliment. It maybe didn't come out quite so well because you look super healthy and radiant. But anyway, that's the story. That was literally the accelerated version. That is the story of Jason Bradbury. Well, and it's pretty cool to be honest, because if I think of the Gadget Show, for example, which is obviously where you kind of made it big in terms of the mainstream in the UK at least. When I think of you on it, that maker side of it, I think exactly the hoverboard and the fails around that, you falling. Yeah, exactly. All of that sort of stuff. And so it's quite interesting as well that you didn't just come from that tech side. You actually started as a writer on Channel 4, like you mentioned. You actually have like a whole kind of TV background, but it didn't come across like that you were just a presenter. It always came across that you were genuinely passionate about the tech, which I guess.
But I was.
So that was right? Yeah.
That was the 50%. That was down to my dad. And it's difficult to explain, but when someone brings a ZX Spectrum into your house, right? And he says, look, you can't show your school friends this because it's top secret. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's it's like it'd be like Elon Musk talking to you about, a brand new spaceship, or maybe if Elon Musk made an aeroplane or something completely different, right? Yeah. You wouldn't be able to tell anyone, would you? You'd sign all kinds of NDAs. Well, I was getting this regularly, like with all kinds of, and it wasn't just computers. It was things like Action Man, which was really popular. When I was only young. Palatoy, I think it was one of his clients. Things like the game Simon, other little, innovations, kitchen gadgets. like coffee machines, things that all needed plastic. My dad, it wasn't just my dad, but other companies, they would get these products and they'd be pitching for them and trying to get the business. And so I ended up being this kind of product tester, this kind of alpha product tester. And so it's no great thing, is it, that I went to the Gadget Show and I knew how to articulate an opinion about a prototype or whatever it was that we did.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because, that's so rich in your mind as like a kind of where this kind of passion came from. If I think from myself, I remember when my dad came home once with a Windows 95 laptop, and it was it had a floppy disk drive on it, and he said, "Alex, this is yours because work doesn't need it anymore." And that was the literal coolest moment. That was, and I remember going into what was PowerPoint then, and what I used to do is I used to make film posters of cool films that I wanted to make, and I would actually use like clip art, to create these kind of like film posters on this. And it's funny, like that, those sorts of things as a kid are so important. And now obviously I, love technology and stuff like that. And I think like in a similar kind of shared history there, like that has definitely as a kid shaped your interests as you grow.
It's interesting for me because now I'm a dad. I'm a dad of 3 teenagers. I've got a 14-year-old, 17-year-old, and 19-year-old. And I'm not actually say again.
I said good luck.
Yeah, I'm not actually aware, in an objective sense, of the role that our dads clearly played in our lives, and I'm just doing my best to cope with. Well, from a 14-year-old, like 78 questions a day on every topic, from the value of a Roman coin to how do you make the perfect white sauce. That's my son Harrison, my youngest. He's very clever, really interested in just anything. He's just built, actually. It's funny, actually. You know what? Your listeners, your viewers are going to think I'm just an idiot for not seeing the writing on the wall. Based on what we just said, he's just built his own electric bike.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, man. And what was interesting was just him selecting the components and trying to work out to the nth degree, what speed controller was compatible with which cable, with which 2,000 watt, 1,000 watt, 750 watt motor, whatever he could afford, That was really interesting watching him do that. It taught me a lot about him, actually. Kids are amazing because they kind of, they teach you a lot about yourself, but they also constantly amaze you and constantly reveal things about them that you just never knew. Like they might be really compassionate, or they might be, I don't know, they might show an interest in poetry, and you're like, what?
Sure. Where did that come from?
Yeah, really generous, or they might be aggressive about something. And it's really surprising on a daily basis. And I was really surprised that he showed such care and attention about the cross compatibility. And he's built this bike, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, I was going to say
highly illegal, but awesome.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I can't imagine that he's sticking to the rules if he's a son of yours, right?
He sticks to. He's a sensible boy, but when he's off roading, he's got a bit of power.
There's a switch, is there? Yeah. There's a switch that in certain private land situations may get turned on, right?
Well, you're talking to a dad who put 2 jet engines on a skateboard and went 118 miles an hour. So. Yeah, we did consider safety. We looked at the safety parameters of that particular project on the Gadget Show, but it wasn't foremost in our minds.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, like that is absolutely nuts. And there's obviously been, loads of high profile things like, on Top Gear with Hammond and stuff like that. I mean, if you actually look back at that, it probably wasn't a smart idea, that one. I mean, you're quite lucky to not come away quite almost injured from that, right?
The thing was with the Gadget Show, we used to do world record attempts because, like any as a podcaster, right? Any format, once in a while you got to drop a little bit of chili flavoring into it. You got to kind of have stuff that you can use to keep it interesting for you and the viewers, right? And the great thing about world records is that you can drop one in every sort of 10 episodes. You can say, right, we're doing a new world record, and I can tell you, I can remember all the world records. I did 7. I got 7 world records.
Well, I
We
was going to
didn't
say,
always win.
how would you even decide? Because there's with world records, the Guinness World Records, there's always records for just bizarre things,
Yeah,
which some of the Gadget Show ones are in that category.
they
I mean,
are
how do you
definitely.
even think? How do you even like what? How's the idea come from? Like, where do you get that?
The Gadget Show production team was like a group of friends just
Right.
trying to make each other laugh all the time. That's what, like a lot of the YouTube channels are like that. That kind of gang of idiots, you know. And so we would constantly be spouting stuff, and then someone would say, "Oh, I wonder if there's a world record for a water-powered car." And then
Sure.
we'd look in the book, and I can't remember whether there was or whether there wasn't, but we built a water-powered car. And all it did, get this, it effectively, it just dripped water out the back of a pipe, but it did actually propel the car. So it was probably about 1.5 miles an hour. I can't remember, but I know that we did that. But then you get, when you say, oh, what about putting jet engines on a skateboard? Then we'd look, and then someone had got the world record, and they were like 113 miles an hour. So that becomes difficult. So now we've got to look at designing something. So then it becomes a luge as opposed to a skateboard, which is effectively a long skateboard.
Yeah.
Where you lie on it with feet first. And so then
I'm hoping we can find some clips of this to put as B-roll.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can. Because the great thing about the Gadget Show is they took their time. They kind of took ages until they realized that they could put their content on YouTube. But they finally uploaded it, loads and loads of legacy stuff on. So it'll be on YouTube somewhere. But basically, we built this longboard. That's the word I was looking for. And I had a bit of my headrest with the kerosene fuel tanks. The brake, no, there were no brakes. And the brakes were my motorbike boots. And I had a really cool leather suit with my name on the back and everything, which felt really cool, and a helmet. And then I was feet first, like with my chin, sort of like that. And and the throttle was you think I'm making this up, right? The throttle was a piece of string. Wow. So they had this laptop out, and they get the thing like that. You know, the engine.
That must have been pretty scary. Exactly, yeah. Like, and where was the turbine? Between your legs?
No, there's two turbines either side of my head.
Oh, even worse. Perfect.
And so, but get this, bro. So we start on this. We're at like RAF Mildenhall or something. We're at some American like mass. It was like where the I don't know what the B-52 bombers, whatever they are, where they landed when they came over from America. So it was about, I don't know what it was, about 4 miles long.
Really long kind of airfield strip. Right?
Yeah. And we had the man with his Guinness Book of World Records jacket on, and we had all that. And then we had this timing gate in the center of the runway, which was like infrared triggers or whatever. And off I went, and I got up to 100 miles an hour. Yeah. And dude, it started to wobble, and then it slid sideways, and I was going sideways at 100 miles an hour, and I sheared
on a skateboard.
Yeah, and I went straight off the runway, and I went into this like field, and man, I ripped all my arm up in that, and then I was in the ambulance and everything. It was like, but no one knows because it's not Top Gear, and who cares?
Yeah.
So basically.
So what you're saying is your life is worth less than Richard Hammond's. Is that?
I am absolutely concretely saying that. So then, but if you think that's scary, what's more scary is like 3 months later, the producer rang me up and he goes, "Oh, good news, Jace." I went, "What?" "Yeah, we fixed it. We're going to try again." So now I knew how terrifying it was, whereas before I didn't know. And go down the motorway. I mean, don't do this, but imagine going down the motorway at 100 miles an hour. Know that you've got to go another 13 or 4. You've got to go another 14 miles an hour at least to get the world record. Yeah. And the thing lifts. I mean, you can feel, because obviously I'm steering it with my weight. You can feel the airflow trying to do the old Bernoulli's principle and throw you into the air, right?
But being that low to the ground, I mean, even if you think about a go-kart, like how fast a go-kart feels when you're that low to the ground. I mean,
but the great thing was, so the second time we did it, and we did 118 and we got the world record. And I remember putting my feet down, and they had like metal bits on the feet, and there was sparks flying everywhere. And like, it took me about half a mile to stop. But yeah, that was crazy. One of the best ones. But we made a robot of me called Robo Jace, and we made things like a steam-powered ice cream machine. We made a mind control interface for a computer. We made all these crazy things, which kind of Colin Furze kind of does now on YouTube. But
I was going to say, I mean, it does feel like a lot of that. I was going to say a lot of that sort of stuff does seem to have kind of transitioned to YouTube and podcasts,
Yeah.
and obviously even the Gadget Show now has evolved to a certain degree. You're back, which is super cool, but it's now in a kind of podcast format. I mean, how did that happen? You're back
It
on
happened.
it with Susie. I mean, how did
I don't
that?
know what the official line is on it, because I left the Gadget Show. I did 12 years on the show, had an amazing time, worked with the incredible Susie Perry, John Bentley, Otis Dealey, and then I also worked with Rachel Riley and Pollyanna Woodward and so many other cool people. And I just had my fill of it, and I kind of felt my own voice echoing back through my head now. And
12 years of anything
yeah,
is a long time, right?
it was hard. And my kids were really young, and I wanted to be a bit more of a part of their lives. In fact, we ended up actually when I left. My wife said, "Right, we're going to take the kids out of school. They're only young at that time," and we went around the world for a year.
That's
and we never
awesome.
went back to London. When we got back, we couldn't live there, so we moved. And now I live in Cornwall. But anyway, back to the Gadget Show. So yeah, I was nothing to do with the Gadget Show for about 7 years, and then I got a phone call really recently, like at Christmas, and it was the original producer, and he said, would you be up for doing a podcast? Because basically, you said, how did it happen? And I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing here, but I'm just going to tell it like it is. What happened was someone changed the idea of changed the name of the Gadget Show, and they made it, I don't know what they call it now, but like the Better Gadget Guide or something like that, right?
It was also, they moved the format, right? It was in a house, and it was all about.
Oh, yeah, but this is after that.
Oh, this is after that. Okay.
Yeah, they changed the name of it, and what they are attempting to do, and I commend this, is they are, it's a commercial entity, and they've got to give the viewers what they want, right? And I think a lot of people in this country now are a lot poorer than actually we're all admitting. And so I think for the Gadget Show to stop going to Dubai and looking at the most expensive gold,
gold-plated iPhone or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
it's probably a good idea. And so I think the reformatting is around giving people value and showing them really good ways of buying affordable tech, right? And I applaud that. Anyway, the bottom line is, and I'm not being cheeky, I genuinely can't remember the title, which is really rude of me. I'm going to look it up because I'm rude. Just bear with me.
But I think I was going to say, like, I think that comes down to, like, the Gadget Show as a brand is very strong, and so when it's back and it's with you and Susie, it's quite exciting for the viewers of that generation, because it's kind of like a throwback to a certain degree. Although it's a new format.
So the Good Gadget Guide, Shop Smart Save Money, is on Channel 5. All right.
Cool.
And that is all about, well, it's I think it pretty much says what it does on the tin. What Susie and I are doing, you're right, is a return to form. It's to a certain extent, a kind of retrospective with a very considerable dollop of new contemporary content with the two OG presenters. And we've also had John Bentley and Otis has been on the show as well. So yeah, so that's I think that's,
it's like getting the old gang back together, right? And it's super
Definitely.
fun. And you've had, I think, from my side, it feels like the format is you guys bringing toys and testing, and then you seem to have guests as well. So obviously you mentioned John Bentley and Otis, but you also had, I think, was it Super Saf, one of the YouTubers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next week, cool. I think he came and did us, and the next week he met like Tim Cook.
Right. Okay.
And I felt, at first I was thinking,
you were thinking there's levels to this game. Is that what you were saying?
You must be really excited to meet us. it was the other way around. He's got millions of followers, and then he's entertaining the head of Apple. So so we've been very privileged to have. But it's great. I think that's what the show benefits from. It's people like you, a new generation of very influential, knowledgeable, cool people in all kinds of walks of life. We had one of the guys from Codemasters came on. And he's telling us about the new F1 game. I mean, oh my God, the stuff. I mean, you have to watch the episode. It's called the Gadget Show podcast. You can get it on YouTube and Spotify and whatever. Look for the episode with the Codemasters guy, and it's so interesting because he talks about how they work with F1 and how they deal with the secrets that all the teams have before the new season starts, and how they record the sound. And it was absolutely amazing. It was insane levels of realism.
I'm going to have to check that episode out, Jason, because so from my background, so I used to work at McLaren, and
No, you didn't.
Yeah. So back in the day, I was in their IT department, and I'd see some pretty cool stuff. I led their kind of AR VR kind of adoption, and I literally used that as a vehicle to get into the coolest places within the McLaren Technology Center. I'll put some pictures up. It's literally one of the coolest buildings you've ever seen. The artificial lake.
I've heard it's in. Is that the one in Surrey?
It's in Surrey. It's
Near Brooklands.
Just outside of Woking, actually in Chertsey. But pretty amazing place. But I used the AR VR tech as a vehicle to get into all the coolest spaces. So they had all the designers in the design studio, and I'd have to put my phone away before I went in there. I see all the new designs of the new supercars before they got released.
I was going to say, I'm more interested in the supercars than I am the F1. But
you know what's interesting is that they're very separate, and more recently because of all of the budget constraints. So there's a new thing in Formula One called the budget cap, which is you're not allowed to spend over a certain amount, and so they've had to extricate themselves very differently. So the automotive side and the F1 side are very different, and quite interestingly, they're quite competitive with each other. So what I would do is I'd show the VR kind of technology to some of the designers in the design studio. They'd be like, "Oh, that's great," and then I'd tell the F1 team, "Oh, the automotive team is loving to look at it," and they'd be like, "Oh, well, we should look at it." Yeah, we are. Maybe if they're doing it.
Tell me, what headsets were you using? Like, were you using some top end stuff like Pimax and all that?
This is back in like 2018. So this is how I kind of got into this kind of space. So it was stuff like the Pimax, and there was another one, the Vario. I don't know if
you tried use the Vario with the I got that like two screens, like a miniature screen inside. It's got a screen and a screen and a screen, which is the one.
I didn't try that one, but
because there's one. So there's one. There's one. I think it might be the Vario, and it has a super high def OLED, tiny screen, which is where your detail is, and then it uses a totally separate screen. And bear in mind, so it's got 4 screens in total because there's 2 in each eye to look at all the peripheral stuff. So you get a really wide field of view. But then you get this super high def where your eye is actually going, because I think it's called foveated rendering, isn't it?
Yeah. Where it's like and that's
a kind of physical version of that idea, foveated rendering,
which is interesting because usually that's all in software, right? So it's like you turn your head to and what's that? Oh, here we go. Yeah, we got all the headsets. What's that? Quest 3.
Quest 3. That was the Quest 2.
Yeah. New strap on it as well. I can see as well.
Yeah. Got the Bobo VR. Nice. This is actually from a YouTuber friend of mine called Gamertag VR. Do you know Gamertag VR?
I have heard of them.
He's a lovely. If you ever want to do a VR special, he'd be a really good guy to talk to.
Might be it.
Him and Virtual Reality Oasis, who you might.
Oh yeah, well he's probably one of the biggest, right?
They actually have a company together. They work together. They're really knowledgeable. But I'm big on. I've had all the Vive. I've had all the Vive.
Yeah.
HTC Vives. I'm trying to remember what they're called. I've never had one of the Steam headsets. I've always wanted
the Valve, the Index,
the Valve Index. Yeah, because they have they released what was being called Project Deckard? Are you familiar with that? Has that been released?
I remember hearing rumors about that, but I don't. As far as I'm aware, the current latest model of the Steam headset is still the Valve Index, and that's quite old now.
Yeah, but it's still
the current one. Yeah. With the controllers as well, they had these weird kind of sensors in them as well, which was quite a different kind of way of doing it.
Because I got to the Quest 2, and then there was talk of the Deckard, which was a replacement for the Index, or maybe it wasn't, but that was because everyone tries to guess what it's going to be, right?
Of course.
And then there was, if it was the Vario that I'm talking about, I'm sure your listeners and viewers will correct me if not, but the one I'm talking about that had this, it's like $8,000, and it had this insane level of quality, and people that I watch, a lot of the YouTubers were raving about this, and I was thinking there's going to and the Apple Vision Pro was just around the corner.
We'll definitely have to get into that because I think that's a game changer.
Yeah, have you played with it yet?
I have actually. I got the demo in the US from the Apple store, so I had Apple actually talk me through. You can get the demo now in the UK because obviously it's available. But
can you do that? I'd like to do that.
Yeah, mate, Jason. You just book a. You could go on the Apple website. You can book a slot, and you'll have a full customized demo.
I'll take a train to London just for that. But I've already played with it thanks to a Virtual Reality Oasis who came on to the Gadget Show. It was episode 1 of the Gadget Show podcast, and we reviewed the Vision Pro. But anyway, there was something in the air that told me things were about to change, and then I got my hands on the Quest 3, and I thought, right, I'm not going to invest. I'm going to wait. And the truth is, I'm still waiting. I'm sort of hoping that pre-Christmas 2024, something's going to drop, because I just feel, I think the Quest 3 represents incredible value for money. Incredible value for money. This thing can take you into another reality, and it's so versatile. I think the pass through is good enough to use in some really interesting and engaging ways. It's not on the level of clarity that you get with, say, the Vision Pro. It's not even in the same league visually, but practically it is. And for whatever I can't even remember what the price of it is, because they change it.
Yeah, it's 400 or 500.
Amazing, isn't it?
Something like that.
It's amazing. Yeah. But what I'm ready for now, I'm ready for Vision Pro level visuals, right? But with Quest 3 ease of use and gaming catalog. That's what I want, and that's what I hope Valve are going to drop. That's what I want them to come up with, so that I've got, because if I couldn't have the, sorry, I'm talking too much, but I promise to shut up.
No, this is great.
But this is one of my favorite subjects, bro. I'm so into VR, right? And what I want is, I'm happy to, I would accept saying goodbye to the Quest 3 catalog, which I love, right? If it, and so that I was marooned within Steam, right? As long as what the hardware that I had to buy to do that was like, 3 times the graphical quality of my Quest 3. I just want that Half-Life Alyx in like 4K per eye. I just want that. I love it. I love VR so much.
Do you know what? But the thing is that I think as geeks like us, I think that makes perfect sense. But I think when you talk about mass market VR, the stuff like the Steam VR situation, you need to have a gaming PC really to run these sorts of systems. So I think what's quite cool about the Vision Pro and the Quest 3, obviously, is that like they are their own computer.
Yeah,
and I think that has been a big thing, right? That's
a very good point. I do forget, because I'm fortunate enough to have access to that kind of hardware. I've got, God knows what. What have I got in there? RTX
4090 or something.
4090, 4080, I think it is. Oh, I have to upgrade that.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I think I kind of forget, actually, that is a serious investment. And the reason I don't see it is it's a business tool for doing editing, right? So I don't really think about the expense of it. But you're so right, actually. You're so right. What the Vision Pro does is remarkable. And actually,
at that price point,
for the money, I know, which is mad. Just to think that we're talking about the Vision Pro as value for money.
Yeah, $3,500.
What's the UK retail?
I don't know. Well, I think it's 3,500, but I'd have to double check. But it's around that. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I mean, I guess since we're on headsets, so obviously after leaving McLaren, I joined Microsoft. So I led their HoloLens business in the UK. I actually got HoloLens up.
No way. That's crazy, man. It's rocking the HoloLens.
So this is the HoloLens 2, which is their kind of mixed reality headset, which is a completely different angle on VR because it's not VR, it's mixed reality, but because you're using projection technology. So a lot of these headsets that are mixed reality based, like the Quest 3 and the Vision Pro, they do so through cameras. Whereas with the HoloLens, you actually have a transparent front on it, and it projects effectively an image into your eyes. The only other headset that really does that in a kind of big way is the Magic Leap as well. Did you ever try any of those types of waveguide headsets?
I never tried Magic Leap. I kind of bought the hype a little bit. I was like,
I think we all did. I think even at McLaren, we got one and we were like, oh, this is so exciting. And then when we got it, we were a bit like, oh, okay. I think we've been.
But I was really impressed with HoloLens. I really enjoyed that. I was working I was a visiting lecturer in design, actually, in the design department of Lincoln University for about 4 years. That's where we went when we came back from our trip around the world. We moved up to Lincolnshire, which is where my wife and I are both originally from. So all those breakdancing product demo experiences that I was talking about, that all happened in Lincolnshire. Right?
In Lincolnshire, right.
Yeah. And while I was there, the department had a bit of budget, and they stupidly asked me, what should we buy? What gadget should we buy for the design department, for the university students to play with? And I said HoloLens. So we got HoloLens, and I really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, I have a very, very small field of view, didn't it? That was the only
Yeah,
thing.
it was that was the big. It was letterbox, right?
Yeah.
So wherever you looked, the center of your head would have a view, and it was vibrant, that center. But like you said,
Yeah,
it was
but so
very
small,
limited.
postage
Yeah,
stamp
yeah,
size. But
yeah.
the brain is really good, isn't it, at connecting the dots and excluding all of the irrelevant stuff, like the fact that it's black everywhere else that you're looking. But I was going to say, I'm saying that I'm a big fan of VR. The truth is, I am a big fan of mixed reality. That's what I want, and so my day job right now is talking to companies about AI. That's what I do. And when I say talking to companies, what I mean is I am a keynote speaker at events, right? So it might be like Vodafone, and it'll be a couple of thousand people at the Excel Center, and there'll be a wider reason why they're there. It'll be the annual general meeting or whatever, and I'll be one of several speakers that come up. But now, almost exclusively, they contact the various agencies that look after me, and they'll say, "Oh, can Jason talk about AI?" And so I've had to really deep dive artificial intelligence, including doing a course at MIT, believe it or not, which is really
that's
amazing.
pretty cool.
Yeah, you love that. Yeah, and why am I saying this? Yeah, but one of the things that I don't think a lot of people are speaking about is how AI and the way that the sort of procedural generation of virtual environments, which is what augmented reality needs, right?
Yeah.
How AI is going to bridge that gap. So the idea is, we walk down the street. So let's say I'm in my office here, and I whack on one of those headsets, right? It's a very closed environment, right? So not a great deal of stuff has to be rendered. Even if I go to the pass-through part of that Quest 3, looking around, my monitor's there, my Sinclair C5's there, my camera, I've got some bongos. And I might want to put a virtual cup of coffee on the bongos and have some form of contextually aware sensor, some infrared thing that knows where it is and blah, 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 right? But if I'm walking down the high street, that's a whole other reality, right?
Big
and
change.
you want
to,
I
think for the future of retail.
Yeah, and you want to paint those virtual assets on an almost limitless landscape, but rooted geographically, like you just said, because it's a retail asset. So it's an advert outside a clothes shop inviting me in, or it's a hovering thing that's telling me about holidays. It's a joke. It's a postmodern version of the blimp from Blade Runner saying a land of new possibilities and all that stuff. But it's all virtual, right? And it's also very personal. That is a lot of compute. And the only way you can do that, I think, is in the cloud with machine learning.
100%. And I think to your point, like AI and these like AR VR technologies are already kind of coming together, whether it's the procedural generation of assets all the way through to like the actual agents and avatars that you interact with in these spaces. There's a really great startup out of the UK called Virtual Speech, and their platform's a VR platform that puts you on a virtual stage and you feel like you're doing a presentation. It's to help you with your skills, and then they use AI to analyze your presentation and your demeanor and stuff. And then what they've added now, which is really cool, is for interviews or for practicing, like having a hard, difficult conversation with someone, using a GPT model in the background with the other person at the other side of the table. So it's a really cool kind of combination of AI and VR. And I think that those sorts of engagements, the technology kind of work together quite nicely. In that sense.
So because we've got the visualization now, haven't we? And we just need the compute to finally make that final step. And I think it's going to, the kind of exponential nature of change like this is explosive, because the various conditions for a transformational leap normally are a multitude of different things, and when they happen to come together, so they're all being developed, then suddenly, bang, we'll go from where we are right now to painting the street full of assets within 6 months. I don't mean 6 months from now. I mean, when someone like Apple gets into that arena, it'll happen. And then Samsung will do it, and LG will do it, and Microsoft will do it. And, and suddenly then this whole concept of what is AI for, or what are we doing with it, we won't be asking those questions anymore. In fact, I do believe we won't be questioning AI as in, is that an AI, quite soon. the interesting thing to me is I seem to have talked about nothing but Blade Runner tonight, but it's that notion of kind of like having to go to great lengths, like the what's it called, the Voigt Camp test, to look into the retina of what looks like an organic person sat in front of you, in order to tell whether they are a human or whether they're a replicant. Right? We're kind of going in terms of content, we're going to be there very soon, I think.
I think so. And I think, this AI generated kind of videos and photos, we're already seeing those and they're becoming as close as, a human can detect in terms of realism. So I think it's exciting. It's also slightly concerning and you wonder how this technology is going to be used. But, I think AI is a whole topic. We'll get into that in a second. But I think what I wanted to focus in as well on this point was we touched on, what you're doing now. And obviously you're doing a lot of the kind of speaking gigs and things like that. You're also working on a pretty cool project as well. And it's on the AI kind of scene.
It is.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about
I'd love
what
to.
you're up to.
I just want to say, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to tell you, your followers about this. But I really like that idea that you told me about, the virtual reality speaking tutor. I'm going to check that out. Can you just remind me what it's called?
It's called Virtual Speech. I know the CEO pretty well. I can connect you if you're interested, genuinely.
Yeah, no, love to. I'd like to try it, and I'd also like to maybe talk about it when I'm on stage, because it'd be quite meta, wouldn't it, to do that?
Totally.
But so basically, so I did a film degree, but what I didn't tell you earlier was that I was doing a course alongside Simon Pegg and David Walliams. And David Walliams and I, got on really well. It was called David Williams then.
Right. And okay. Are you saying he's rebranded? That's
but it's typical Walliams to say, I am going to change the I to an A. That'll be funny. And it is funny. And we were doing a course, and Simon Pegg was trying out his stand-up, and then we said, why don't we open a comedy club? And so we opened a comedy club, and on the bill was me and David as a comedy double act called Bunce and Burner. David
which
Bunce,
half were you?
David Bunce and Rally Burner.
Right, okay.
Which is a joke because it's a bicycle from the 80s. But anyway, then the Simon Pegg did a double act with his goldfish, and there was a female stand-up called
a real fish.
A real fish in a bowl. And it was, and Mivanwi Moore was a female. She was our flatmate, and you might recognize that name from The Only Gay in the Village. The barmaid's called Mivanwi, and that's because Mivanwi went on when David went on to do Little Britain. She was the series producer for Little Britain, and the compere was her boyfriend at the time, Dominic Diamond. Now, does that name mean anything to you?
Personally, no, it doesn't actually.
So many of your listeners, I keep saying that because I can clearly see you, but their viewers as well, will know that Dominic Diamond was the first and best ever host of Games Master on Channel 4.
Okay,
and he was doing that show at the time we were doing the comedy. He was popping down to London. We were all on this, theatre, film, and TV course. He was popping down to London, recording with Hewland International, the production company that made that amazing show. And then coming back, and then we'd do a comedy club every week in a restaurant in Clifton. And it was called, the comedy club was called David Icke and the Orphans of Jesus. Anyway, I'm telling you all of this in order to give you my writer's credentials. So I was doing that. Then I came out of uni, answered an advert in The Guardian, got a job writing a new drama for Channel 4. Did that for about a year, but it never made it past pilot. Carried on writing bits and pieces in terms of like ideas for TV. Then someone said, why don't you get in front of camera, give it a go? In fact, you know what? It was Mivanwi, actually. It was Mivanwi. Oh, cool. But anyway, there's a whole other story there. We did this TV show out of a porter cabin in a car park at HTV in Bristol. Yeah. And then I met this stand-up comedian called Mark Felgate, because I used to I used to do a lot of entertainment content for people. So I would be like the associate producer on a new BBC Two youth program, or I'd be looking for new talent for a comedy show on London Weekend Television, and they'd send me to the Edinburgh Festival or whatever. And I met this guy called Mark Felgate, and he's a bit like kind of Tommy Cooper, like old school 70s, 80s comedians. Lee Evans, you might know, very physical kind of comedian. He's a bit of a ventriloquist. He's got a really funny voice, messes about with it. Anyway, and we are now best friends. We've been friends for years. And we ended up writing, him and I, we wrote a script And so back in the 80s, right, when I was in Woodall Spa, the way I used to earn pocket money was I was a caddy, because there's a very famous golf club in Woodall Spa.
Okay.
And I used to carry people's clubs around, and they give me like 25 quid or something, right? So it's quite good. And one of the things that used to happen, right? I'm telling you this random stuff, but it's going to be worth it. It's quite funny.
I love it.
One of the things that happened was every sort of 6 months or so, they'd have like a pro-am competition, and then the local car dealership would sponsor a hole. And what they'd say,
if you get a hole in one, right,
you win a Bentley,
car, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So we came up with a movie. This is in about 2000. This is before the Gadget. No, I was doing the Gadget Show, so it would have been about 2006. And we were writing on Skype at that time. I was up in Lincoln. He was down in London. And we were writing, and we wrote this movie about a couple of guys from Lincoln, a guy called Smith and his mate Barry. Smith had always been really good at golf, but he wasn't motivated enough. He was a real bit of a, he kind of lost faith in himself, a bit of a loser, but with the potential to be something. And they work out a plan to train a bird to catch a ball in mid-flight, drop it in the hole, win a Bentley. So two guys cast as losers, bird, catch a ball, drop it in the hole. What was it called? Pigeonholed. It was called Pigeonholed.
And did that get picked up? I don't remember watching that one.
What we did in the sort of analog sense, we just sort of like walked around with the scripts, gave it to a few literary agents, did that, knocked on the door, a working title, other sort of... No one was interested, and I still to this day, it still makes me laugh. It's really funny. I
think if done right, it could be a good comedy. I don't think it would work well as a drama.
No, there's nothing remotely serious about it. It's a comedy. Obviously, it's a comedy. No. But it's like a working class. It's like Kes, meets the In-Betweeners.
Yeah,
I'm making references that, respectfully, I understand. I wasn't meaning to patronize you about your age, but obviously, Kes is like a 1970s, like rough as they come, working class drama, right?
So I know In-Betweeners. I don't know Kes.
Yeah. Well, have you ever seen like something like Billy Elliot, right? Yeah. You know how Billy Elliot is like, it's a drama about a serious social situation with an interesting story woven into it. Well, that's what ours is, but it's a comedy, right? Because when you grow up in Lincolnshire like I did, and then you live in Lincolnshire like I have done, I've kind of always had a house in Lincolnshire. There's an amazing magnetism about the people of Lincolnshire. That place, you are not in the middle of nowhere. You are on the edge of nowhere, right? You're not even in the middle. And like I surf here in Newquay, right, in Cornwall, but I started surfing in just north of Skegness, where the water is like a brown oxtail soup, right?
Skeggy as it's known, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So this movie didn't work. Now we get to lockdown. I know I am talking too much, but I promise you, this is going to be worth it.
I'm enjoying this, man. It's good. It's good.
I hope so. Good. Right. So basically, Mark gets ill during COVID, right? And not badly? With COVID. Yeah, like with a disease. And I can't remember the name of it, but basically it affected his lungs. And it wasn't COVID. And it made like a paralysis of like one of his lungs. And he's in hospital and he's properly ill, right?
Wow.
Like he could die, right? And I'm ringing the hospital every sort of few days and chatting to him in bed. And I said, right, mate, you've got to get well. You've got to get well because we've got to crack this movie thing, man. We gave up. We shouldn't have given up. And it's just like 10 years later. This is like more than that. It's more than 10 years later. It's probably 20 years later. And like 18 years on from the first movie. And so anyway, he gets well. He comes out of hospital and I'm like, right, we're writing the movie. So this time it's Zoom rather than Skype. We started writing the movie. It took us about 6 months. And shall I give you the elevator pitch for it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for someone that doesn't know, maybe tell us a little bit about what this movie project is, and then also I know there's a Kickstarter behind it, so maybe tell people how they can kind of get involved in that.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Well, okay. Well, I'll tell you the movie, and then I'll tell you how this time we stand a really good chance of having it made. It's because of the democratization, thanks to technology of everything. We don't necessarily have to hike it around Soho now. To all the production companies, we can kind of get the viewers
do it digitally
through a crowdfunder. So basically, here's the idea, right? So there's a global rollout of an AI, all right? And it rolls out globally, and instantly everything goes to blackout, right?
Skynet.
So we're not talking Skynet, we're not talking robots, we're just talking everything is shit,
Sure.
right? It just doesn't work, right? There's a run on the banks, the stock markets crash, there's power outages everywhere, transportation stops, the traffic lights are messed up, there's massive car accidents. The protesters that are out there saying no AI, no AI. It gets to nighttime, they turn into rioters and looters. It's like the Purge. The movie is set on the mean streets of Skegness in Lincolnshire, where concurrently in the weeks before, as this rolls out, our character Smith from the first movie that never got made, who's now a slightly different character. He's the son of a one-time speed-running arcade champion, his dad, who now fixes arcade machines in his basement. Smith works in a supermarket. Again, great potential, never realized it. And one of the things that he lives for, him and his flatmates, is the annual Retro Gaming Festival at a convention center in Skegness. And this happens to coincide with the global AI rollout. So they're at the convention center in halls full of beautiful old arcade machines and, of course, retro gaming computers, ZX Spectrums, Commodore 64s, you name it, Atari STs. And they realize, long story short, they've got a generator, which most of Skegness doesn't have, that in that room full of old computers, they might just have the only technology that could quite possibly hack the AI and save the day. It's called Ctrl AI Delete. And can I give the website? Would that be okay?
Yeah. Let's do that. I'll put it in the show notes as well.
That'd be great. I'll tell you what, in the show notes, if you could, so we're going to Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is scheduled for September the 27th. And the best thing to do is go to the Kickstarter. But as it stands, I don't know that URL. So controlaidelete.net is the main website where you'll see loads of stuff, and there'll be a link to the Kickstarter there. That's CTRL, like it is on the keyboard.
On your keyboard, exactly.
Because obviously it's a play on Control Alt Delete, right? Yeah. And .net. And we've got some amazing perks and rewards. You can be in you can buy yourself a role in the movie.
Okay.
As in,
have to have a look at that one.
Yeah. I think with that beard.
Well, do you know what? I've actually been an extra before in a Fast and Furious movie. Yeah.
No.
I was an evil henchman for Idris Elba in a Fast. So if you need an extra,
we need extras. No, you'd be a featured extra. With that kind of
I get a line or something, or I get a wink or something. Yeah,
so
nice.
You can buy yourself an extra role. You can pay a bit more and get a featured extra role, which means you're at the front. It's called Riot. We got Riot Star and then Riot Leader, and Riot Leader, and then you've got I think Riot Leader, if I'm correct, there was a chance of a line of dialogue in that. Although I'm being careful because while we're giving access in all kinds of cool ways, to Premiere, you can get a ticket to Premiere, you can buy amazing merchandise like these T-shirts, which are really cool. There is a coat angle
with the sign on the back.
With the what have I done? I've made a right mess of that. with the logo on the back. Look, you can buy the Blu-ray. You can get it signed. I tell you what you can do. You can get your name or the 3 letters that you want on the honor roll of the fictional arcade machine.
I already knew what you were going to say. What was yours? What was your 3-letter one?
Jab, Jason Allen Bradbury.
Nice.
What's yours?
Mine was a bit boring. ACE. But
that's not boring at all.
Well, I guess not, but it wasn't my name or anything. But
so basically, it's really exciting, and we're only going to get to make it by virtue of the Kickstarter. You can also make any donation you want if you just want to chuck us a $5. Sure. That's amazing. But hopefully, our goal is £50,000, and we hope to smash that, and then we hope to get maybe then we could look for more seed funding. But either way, whatever we get, whatever size the budget is, eventually we're going to make it. We've got some amazing people. We've got a Hollywood director, an old friend of mine. This is the great thing about being 55. Your mates have gone and done crazy stuff, like Elizabeth, who's gone off to Hollywood now. She's directed like over 10 movies, more than that actually. and she's worked with Mickey Rourke in her latest movie. She's
Very
the
cool.
real deal. But her speciality is, budget movies. So it's good. So she knows how to stretch the resources. And we've got a great director of photography, an amazing guy from down here in Newquay, who has worked for Red Bull and the Super Triathlon League or whatever it's called. He does makes amazing stuff. And he's worked on our promo, which you'll see if you go to the Kickstarter.
100%. Yeah. Well, so what we'll do at the time of this, the release of this episode, we'll have all the links and everything like that. So we'll flash them on screen, and I'll drop them in the kind of show notes as well. But Ctrl AI Delete.net is the kind of landing page for now, right?
CTRL.
Totally. Just conscious of time, and because I think we could spend hours kind of catching up. One of the things that before we close, I wanted to kind of talk to you about was really, the Jason Bradburys of the future and the future kind of tech presenters. It's an interesting situation now where there aren't that many shows like the Gadget Show around anymore, and it feels like a lot of tech kind of reviewing and stuff like that has kind of shifted online, right, to things like YouTube.
Real?
So do you think that YouTubers are the embodiment?
I don't know if you say they're the future, I would ask.
Well, they're the present, right?
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say that, and I'm very mindful that as we talk about this kind of mixed reality future, YouTube's going to have to work hard to make sure that it's the platform of choice,
the content platform of choice.
Yeah, for the next generation content creators. But I'm not snobbish about it. Like, if someone can engage you in the narrative of a product, and they can connect you emotionally to whatever it is they're experiencing, whether they think it's awful or whether they love it to bits, it kind of doesn't matter the medium, It doesn't matter the medium. But there are certain practical dimensions to a review. So television works well because traditionally, although I'm not sure that it's the case so much now, we had large budgets and we had very professional, very accomplished artisans, with cameras and sound and all the rest of it, and directors. And there was an established way of communicating the message. So we did things like, okay, we've got this new phone. It's the first phone ever made by Apple, and Jason's got it, and he's not allowed to play with it. There's no manual. Susie's got the Nokia N95. The camera then zooms out, and you realize that we're on a suspension bridge with bungee cords attached to our ankles, and they chuck us off the bridge. And it's the first person to text, "Pull me up." I've got to turn it. I've got to boot the phone up, and so we're testing the operating system because apparently the Apple iPhone is the easiest phone to use in the world, right? That's television, right? Now, it used to be the case that was the sole preserver of television because the amount of money it would cost to have a helicopter and to have the permissions and the insurance to be on a suspension bridge, to have access to the first iPhone. That's a big
But if you look at stuff like Mr. Beast now,
I know,
it's unbelievable, right?
And that's again down to this democratization that I mentioned, because now you don't need a helicopter, you can use a drone, and maybe you still need the permissions on the bridge, which is something that television is good at, is making sure that you don't die and you don't get sued, right? And sometimes YouTube falls foul of that, I have to say. Sometimes I watch them saying things and I just go, well, you just can't say that. Like, that's libelous, or what if this happens? What are you going to do? And television's brilliant at protecting the people working within it from the kind of consequences there. But even that is part of an exponential curve of sorts, in that AI can now provide a legal dimension to things quickly and inexpensively.
Sure.
So as the medium expands, and let's imagine for a moment that it is YouTube 3D or YouTube XR, then I have no snobbery around who reviews what. And put it this way, when my son was looking to upgrade his bicycle and to electrify the whole thing, it was YouTube, wasn't it? It was YouTube. It wasn't television, because the linear nature of television is a bit problematic when technology is moving so quickly.
I think, and it goes with the audience demands, right? I think what the great thing about stuff like YouTube as well is that you realize what all your interests are, and you can find very specific things that you really are interested in, and you kind of go down rabbit holes. Where with TV, it's like you're trying to cater to such a wide audience. I guess that has its own kind of unique challenges as well, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're, even for, say it's a TV show like Top Gear back in the day, like it evolved into very much more than just cars. It was an entertainment show, and it catered to the masses. But as a car purist, some of the episodes where they're not really going into some of the detail, it doesn't cater to me. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's entertainment now. It's not. So I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Whereas on YouTube, you can watch someone do an absolutely in-depth review of a specific car because you're just interested in that, right? So,
I think what's interesting is if you actually think about it. Well, if you actually watch television, and the only time I ever get to watch television is when I'm on holiday or working, and I've got time in the evening in the hotel, because I don't sit at home and watch TV. My TV is a monitor, if you like, for Netflix, Prime and Apple TV, right? Which I'm sure is the case for many people watching and listening to this. But when I do watch it, I realize the demographic of television has changed. It's become older. And television really now, I feel, I might be completely wrong about this, and it's a very big generalization, but in general terms, it seems to work best for people over the age of 55, maybe pushing 60 and so on. The advertising certainly would reflect that. The amount of kind of antique formats.
But it's not sustainable, right? If that is the way that TV is going, I mean,
but that's the act of watching television. But across those platforms, the likes of BBC and Sky and you name it, they're all very much on YouTube now. They're very much on the streaming platforms. I've got a Fire Stick in one of my TVs. When I turn that on, BBC content is just as foregrounded as the latest Netflix movie. So I'm just saying that within the box on the telly, that feels like there's been a demographic shift there. But I do think they've responded really, really well to the biggest threat to their existence since really the 1950s and the beginnings of television.
Totally. And I think it's been a massive shift over the last 10 years in terms of the move to streaming. And it's an interesting situation now where, especially in the US with that whole concept of cable, before you paid one subscription and you got all of these channels, you got everything that you'd want. Now we're split with having a ton of subscriptions individually. And it's like, do you pay for Amazon? Do you pay for Netflix? Do you pay for Disney? And I think that there is an element of the UK population, as we mentioned as well, like that, that everyone's wallet is getting tighter with inflation and everything like that, that, TV may see potentially a resurgence in that sense because, we can't afford 20 different subscriptions to all the TV shows. So maybe there's a future there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really difficult. At the moment, the content threshold for television keeps it relevant and keeps it in play. And the fact that, as I say, I do believe they've adapted really well to the likes of YouTube and other platforms, YouTube particularly. So I now watch news and I watch documentaries and content that would traditionally be on television on YouTube, right? But it's still made by them and they're still getting revenue from that. But you're right, how they maintain that. And if my, kind of subjective analysis happens to be true, and there has been a demographic shift upwards, you're right, that is a problem. That is a problem. Yeah. I also think the BBC license fee is under threat because I don't know how relevant it is anymore for the same reasons that you just mentioned.
Well, I've gone a couple of years without paying, and now I've just was watching all the Olympics. I got a message saying, "Hey, you're watching live, so now you've got to pay again." So now I've had to rebuy it. But it's an interesting one where I went for about 2 years without it, just because I never watched live TV. So it is definitely under threat. And Jason,
and we have a connection. We have a cultural connection and a family ritual connected to television. My 14-year-old doesn't, and that's going to be that could be the real game changer, couldn't it?
100%. There was a time where the whole family would sit together and watch their favorite kind of shows on a Saturday night. You're seeing less and less of that. Everyone's, there's the positives of individualization that I mentioned, where you can watch your specific thing that you're really interested in. But then, it's not a communal activity anymore, right? Everyone's
No,
got their own tablets and devices. They're watching their own things. And I
God,
think,
you're right. Yeah, that's
it's completely culturally
Saturday
different
night
now.
in front of the telly was so special. I've got so
Mm,
many great memories around that, and our dining room being kind of the same room as the television, and
yeah,
sometimes the television was allowed to intrude onto that experience, and we'd all watch, you know, I don't know, whatever it was, Game for a Laugh or whatever, while we ate
sure.
our dinner because Dad had let us this one time, and those are really cherished memories. And sitting in front of the television on Christmas Day, I mean,
Yeah.
does the digital do the digital natives do that? I mean, you don't sit in front of YouTube on Christmas Day, do you? Surely not. As a
No,
family, maybe you do. I don't know.
well, maybe for the king's or the queen's speech, but outside of that, I think it's not culturally in the UK or globally. I think things are changing. But look, Jason, mate, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. This
No,
has
I've
been
been.
really
I'm
awesome, man. Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel like I've talked too much, but you're just good. You just draw it out, man. I don't know how you do it. I've been bewitched, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been really, really interesting. And
It's been super fun, man.
thank you so much
Look,
for
I
inviting me.
just want to say, look, I'm a small content creator. I messaged, Jason from the Gadget Show. I never would have thought that I'd get a reply. I get a reply immediately saying, "Yeah, let's do it." And just want to say thanks so much, man. And if you want to catch Control AI Delete, well, you've got to back it, right? So
Yeah,
I'll chuck all the links in there. Please do check it out, and I really hope to see that get made.
thanks, man.
See you soon, guys. Bye.